Hello guys, welcome back to the channel and to a revisit of this particular topic. This is I guess an exploration of one part of that automatic dive watch comparison video, that video that has been the most popular video of this channel, more so than I ever expected. Thank you for all the support and interest in that particular exploration of 5 tiers of dive watches. In this particular video, I just want to drill down a little bit into the entry to mid tier. Now, in the original video, I went from a Seiko SKX 007 to this particular Oris Aquis date, and that admittedly is a big jump. It's about a 4 or 5 times price difference. That's a gap that left a lot to be desired, and that was reflected in the very insightful comments that came in. So thank you to all the feedback. Some of the suggestions as to what could go between Seiko SKX and Oris Aquis date were things like Hamilton dive watches, a Christopher Ward Trident, a Seiko Sumo, and there were various other suggestions. But today I have received a Steinhardt Ocean Vintage Military. So thank you again to Graham for making this watch available, and I think this is one of the ones that was suggested to be able to fill the gap between the Seiko and the Oris. So let's just go through this particular entry level to the mid-tier Oris and just talk about what differences are you getting when you increase your budget, increase what you pay from the entry level to the mid-tier. So what we have here are automatic dive watches. Of course, all of them have the standard features. They are all 316L stainless steel cases. They all have screw-in case backs and screw-in crowns, and all have 200 meters or greater water resistance ratings. So really we were talking about 300 for most of these. This is a Seiko Divers 200 meter ISO certified watch, of course. All of them have unidirectional 120 click bezels for dive timing, and they all have minute markings, as you can already see there. They all have various degrees of luminosity, so that's obviously a dive requirement. You have to be able to visualize the watch in dark conditions. And specifically for these models, beyond the dive capabilities, they all have hacking, and they all have manual wind capability in these movements. So let's just drill down. I have on the very left an Invicta 40mm Pro Diver, in this case represented by my quick bezel 9403 with the scalloped edge bezel. Next up we have a Seiko Prospex Divers 200 meter. This is the SRP 309, my orange monster, that lovely orange monster. I could have, I guess, potentially put in the Seiko Turtle, but I've chosen to put the orange monster here. Next up, I've mentioned already, Steinhardt Ocean Vintage Military. And then lastly, I have my Oris Aquis date. So this is the only watch that was featured in that original automatic dive watch comparison. Okay, so let's just go through the Invicta again. So Invicta Pro Divers, they have an MSRP of 315, but really you're going to get this for about $80 on Amazon and other retailers. 40mm case size. The weight of this watch is 125 grams, so that's lighter than all the others that you're going to see here. Where is it made? Well, Japan movement, so meaning the movement origins in Japan, and it's assembled in Japan. I think that's what that has to mean, at least if I assume that's the same as what Swiss made means. It means it has to be assembled in Switzerland, but I think the overall assembly is likely not Japanese, otherwise they would say so. So it's probably China or some other alternative location. The movement is in Seiko NH35A, so the very I guess well used, widely used and reliable movement, 21,600 beats per hour, 41-hour power reserve, 24 joules. You've already seen this. I'm not saying anything new here. The luminosity is basic. It is Invicta's lume. They call it the Tritnite, but I think it's really not better than any basic lume that I've seen in watches that you can, get for $20 throw away at certain outlets, department stores. Not, sorry to say that for Invicta, but that's the truth of my experience with their lume. The glass is mineral glass. It does have that Cyclops date window there. The bezel is a steel insert, PVD treatment, I mean, but there's no fancy material here. It's a steel bezel. The bracelet end links, I'll just open this up, that you've already seen in my various videos. You can see there, those are hollow end link bracelet. It does have a mineral glass display back, so Invicta does play that feature into their products, which is a nice touch. The link fasteners are pin, right, not screw at this level, and the clasp is basic. It is pressed metal all over the place. It's pressed metal, basic clasp that you see here without a dive suit extension. Right, so Invicta, bang for buck, $80 for a movement, automatic Japanese movement that hacks and winds. It really is bang for buck, and the finishing, for what you pay is really quite good. I have no complaints with the level of finishing that they are able to achieve at this price point. What's not so good? Well, I've mentioned the bracelet. The clasp, and the bracelet feels light, 125 grams in total with a steel bracelet. I just don't know whether this is 316L steel. I'm sure the case is, they say so. I'm not sure if that extends to the bracelet. That's a bit of a question mark for me. And then quality control, that Cyclops date window is not absolutely square, the way that it's been attached on. And then the bezel is solid. It's solid feeling, but the motion and the sound is just a little bit tinny, if you know what I mean. So there's certainly weaknesses that you're going to get. Okay, moving up to the Seiko. So SRP 309, orange monster, and this is the second generation with the aggressive teeth that I so love with this watch. So this watch is 42.5 millimeters across in the case, 165 grams. So you really feel the difference between this and the Invicta. Ostensibly, the MSRP is $595. Now this one is no longer in production, and it's crazy popular. So it sells for even perhaps sometimes more than $595 if you get a brand new one in perfect condition. Secondhand, of course, less than that. As a comparison, say the SRP 311, which is nowhere near as popular, you can get it for around $250 on online retailers. I have just checked that, and you can still get that particular watch even though it's no longer in a production run. Made in Japan, of course, but the K version can be made elsewhere. Now the J version is for the Japanese domestic market, and this one is a J version as far as I gather. And you can see on the dial there, it does say made in Japan between the 6 and 8 o'clock marking there. Okay, so some will be made in Japan. The movement is made in Japan. Sometimes it's assembled in other countries, in my understanding. This movement is essentially the same as that in the Invicta. It is the 4R36 Seiko. So when it's used in Seiko, it's branded 4R36. When they use it in third parties, it's NH35A. Is it any different? In as far as I have read in many different locations and forums, I think people don't generally find that they perform differently. They are just as good as each other. Maybe Seiko puts a bit more quality into their own movement. I don't know, but they do seem to perform the same for most people, and it's exactly the same specs with 41-hour reserve and 24 jewels. Okay, so what other features are you getting when you pay for a $250 plus Seiko compared to the baseline Invicta? Well, you're getting LumiBright, and LumiBright is great lume. You check out my lume video for more details, but it really is a very good lume. definitely outperforms Invicta and a lot of even mid-level watches who don't use super luminova. You're getting Hardlex crystal. That's Seiko's Hardlex. Now, is that any better than typical mineral glass? A lot of people do find that Hardlex seems to perform better than the usual mineral glass, even though it is a type of mineral crystal. I don't know what secrets Seiko put in it, but it does seem to be harder. It's not sapphire, but people do seem to report that this performs better than a lot of other mineral glasses. Okay, what else are you getting? Well, the end links are solid. Okay, you're getting solid end links, not hollow. The clasp here does have a dive extension, but it remains relatively low-level pressed metal clasp. When you put it together, it's not bad, but it is still a pressed metal style clasp. There's nothing more solid than that, really. Okay, so what strengths are you getting in this particular level? You're getting brand that is beyond, of course, Invicta. Seiko is really one of the biggest brands in the world. It is a household name known throughout the world, and they've been there at the forefront of innovation in horology across the 20th century and also, I think, into the 21st century, of course. You're getting design and craftsmanship. Now, the design in Seiko watches, so many good stuff, including this one, of course. You've got the Sumo, the Tuner, the classic SKX. There's a lot of famous, well-loved Seiko watches. This is no exception. It's got a fanatical following, and I really like the design. It's original, and it's made with a level of craftsmanship that you can really appreciate for budget value. You don't have to pay over 1,000 for this. You don't have to pay over 500 for this. Originally, it really is great value for what you get. Weaknesses, well, really only one as far as I can bring up is again, the clasp is not great. It's pressed metal. It's almost like they ran out of budget when they reached the end. The back of the watch, all of it was spent developing the front. Okay, so that's the Seiko there. All right, moving on to the next level, the Steinhardt that I have here. Okay, this is the Ocean Vintage Military. Now, the original Ocean Vintage Military had a darker dial. This is, I guess people call this the Ocean 1 Vintage Military. You can see Ocean 1 below the 12 o'clock mark. They're different to the original, which didn't have that. So this is, I guess, a Mark II, if you will. Right, 42 millimeters across on the case. This weighs 175 grams, so 10 grams heavier than the Seiko, and you do feel that in the wrist. At least I can. It does feel like a really substantial watch for not as big a case, not as thick a case. Doesn't seem to have as much metal, but somehow they've made this packed with obviously metalwork and material. 450 US dollars converted from 380 euros is the price that they charge for this, and there's no, I guess, bargaining or discounting that I've seen. You have to get it from Steinhardt or their main online partner retailer, Neumann Watches. Right, you're getting Swiss made, you're getting a Swiss movement. This is the ETA 2824-2. It beats at 28,800 beats per hour. So well used, so widely used, so many watches on the market with it, and so reliable. It's 40-hour power reserve, 25 joules. You're also getting super luminova. Now, is it better than Lumibright? Check out my Lume video again. I think pound for pound, super luminova does perform a little bit better than Lumibright. So it's not just hype. I think it does perform better. Now, this is an old radium colored, 4 patina type of lume. So maybe this doesn't perform as good as the typical bright green super luminova, but in my experience in using this watch, it is pretty good. Now, the bezel again remains to be steel. This isn't ceramic, it is a steel bezel, but you're getting a step up in the bracelet. Now, this is a solid feeling bracelet. Definitely feels a lot better than the Invicta, even though it's still an oyster style bracelet. And then you're getting screw links. I can't, there we go, you can see it on that side. It's screw fastening for the links, you know, a step up from the pins that you've seen earlier. However, this bracelet is still pressed metal. Now this part is a little bit more solid. I think you can still press that, but if you look at that fastener, it's pressed metal, and if you look at the middle part, you can see it is still pressed metal, so it's not a solid machine piece like you might see in higher level watches. Okay, so you know, apart from those upgrades, what is good about this? You know, it is a stunning homage. This is an homage of a Rolex vintage Submariner, and really a military Submariner, I should say. And really, this is a really good looking homage. I've done enough gushing about this in the video of this watch, so I won't go on anymore. I think the fit and finish of this is impeccable. The way it feels in your hand, it is very, very much a step up from the Invicta, and it is also, I would say, they've managed to you know, very much match Seiko, if not maybe even slightly outdo Seiko in the fit and finish and craft department here. You're getting Swiss level components, of course. You're getting a Swiss movement, superluminova, and then also sapphire crystal, I should say. That's also a step up. You know, weakness, really only one weakness I picked out on this watch is that it is a clasp. You know, some people would say being an homage is also a weakness. You know, so is the Invicta. You know, that's a bit subjective. I don't mind how well this has been done. And, you know, just to show you as well, the bezel action is definitely better than the entry level that you see here. You know, Seiko do very good bezels. I think this bezel functions, feels, in terms of how it turns, is a little bit better than that orange monster there. Okay. All right, and then stepping up to the Oris Aquis date, which you've seen already in my review, one of my earlier videos, as well as being present in that original automatic dive watch comparison. This watch is $1850 USD in terms of MSRP, but realistically you can get this for around the 1300 mark. Now obviously this is no longer the most late model. Oris have released an update to the Oris Aquis date, but you know, you can still get this one relatively easily as current stock. All right, so the movement is essentially the same as the Steinhardt, but it is a Sellita brand. You know, this is the SW200-1, which is the equivalent of the ETA 2824. The specs are very similar, but it's rated at 38-hour reserve, but with one extra jewel. It is a 26 jewel movement, right? So is this, you know, inferior to ETA, who are the originators? It's probably a similar question to, is a Seiko, you know, brand movement superior to the NH35A? Most people around the forums and conversations that I've had seem to say that it is the same, that they perform the same, they are just as good, they are just as reliable as the ETA. There's no noticeable difference that people have had in operation. But admittedly, it is more economical. So as far as I know, Sellita charge a bit less than ETA for the same movement. The specs are similar to the Steinhardt on this watch. So 43 millimeters, 175 grams, slightly bigger, but the weight is actually the same. The adjusted weight with links taken out for my wrist size is the same as the Steinhardt. You're still getting superluminova, you're still getting a lovely domed sapphire, but the step up is here. You're getting a ceramic bezel insert, right? So that's the only ceramic watch here in this particular range. The bezel, the bracelet, of course, remains very solid, and you're seeing Oris's proprietary lugs there. So there's no room to have anything hollow there. One difference is this is an improvement on the rest here, right? Machined pieces for the dive extension and machined a fully machined clasp you're seeing this time. There's no press metal option or press metal I guess eyesore that you're going to see on an Oris clasp here. It is absolutely solid. Right, so, you know, I don't have to say too much about this watch. You know, you're getting a very, very well-respected name. This is the Swiss-made entry, I guess, that we called for the luxury level of Swiss-made watches. You're getting a fantastically built bezel. Now, this is right a different sounding bezel, but it is one of the best bezels on any of the watches that I own. It really is a great dive bezel. The bracelet build is, of course, the best, objectively the best out of all of the watches here. You're getting a display back. You know, whether that's good or bad, some people say that's a weakness, but, you know, I do enjoy being able to see the movement in my watches. And I've never heard that being a true compromise to the dive capability. You know, what weaknesses does an Oris have? You're really nitpicking, and the main one is that it's proprietary lugs, meaning you can't swap out for NATOs, not easily anyway. All right, guys, so there we have it. This is getting a little bit too long, but hopefully that is a helpful, enjoyable, informative video, you know, a exploration into this entry to mid-tier dive watches. Of course, let me know what you think, and I will try to put a table of information after the end of this video. Always, guys, you know, give us a like, subscribe to keep in touch, and I will see you next time.